Hey, good afternoon. Can you guys hear me? No.
Your full screen on there.
Okay. No.
Got computer audio turned on.
Yeah. I guess we could call one of them and go to speaker.
Yeah, I can try a different computer if they want to.
How's it going? I'm good. I'm good. Can y'all hear me? I cannot hear you.
We cannot hear you.
Okay. So we must have some kind of technical issue. Do you want to just put the phone on speaker and we can do it that way, or I'm happy to do it however?
Let's give another second.
Okay.
I can try to zoom in right now from here with my computer too. Just to check it.
Check the mic.
Yep. I've got mine off of mute and it's registering my voice.
It's off mute and registering its voice. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. All right, auditor, we may have to do what you just suggested. Wonderful.
Is this the old fashioned way? Can we call it that? If we're on speaker on a cell phone, I feel like you can call it that.
All right. I think we got it. Can you guys hear? Everyone here?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Shad, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. I'm good to go.
All right. Let's just go this way. We're good. Everybody's happy. All right. We have about 15 minutes. We can't wait to hear your presentation. And so if you would start.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I appreciate y'all, by the way, letting me do this virtually. I'd committed to being at the editorial board of the Daily Journal today and had to give a talk in town. So I'm up in Tupelo, but I'm glad we're able to do this with technology. So to, I guess, cut to the chase really quickly, we're asking for level funding this year from our budget from last year, from our FY22 budget. So one of the reasons we're asking for a level funding is we feel that with our current level of funding and our current level of pins, if our pins are restored back up to 170, that we've got both the resources and the pins that we need to do the work that we need to do this year. Mr. Chairman, I may have hinted this to you or said it to you at some point in the past, and I think I said it at the big ARPA hearing that we had several months ago. You know, we will need to, over the course of the next couple of years, hire more auditors to audit this big influx of stimulus funds that are coming in. We're at, you know, depending on the week, between 133 and 135 pins filled. I would like to get that number a bit higher to have the staff that I think we need to be able to audit all of the additional money that is coming through. But our real problem in getting that staff in is not general fund appropriations and it's not the number of pins that you have given us. We feel that those two are sufficient. Our biggest problem is in finding the qualified people that we need to work in the auditor's office. It is very difficult to find the person or the people with the skill set that we need to work here. We're looking for CPAs, ideally CPAs with experience. We're looking for law enforcement officers with experience or training in white collar crime. We're looking for attorneys. And so you can't just pick somebody up off the street and bring them into the auditor's office to come and do the work that we do. And two, of course, it's difficult to attract those kinds of folks given the salaries that we're able to pay and the salary cap that the agency is under my salary. So given those constraints, we're doing our best to recruit talented folks into the auditor's office, and I think we're going to have to continue to do that over the course of the next couple of years. We're implementing some new measures and rolling out a new fellowship program here this year, where we're offering to pay for a part of an accounting student's degree when they're in university, in exchange for them agreeing to come and working for us in the state auditor's office for a couple of years after they get done. So we're getting creative now about trying to find those people and bring them into the auditor's office. But for your purposes, I think that the main message here is that you have been generous with us in the general fund. We want to maintain that level of general fund appropriations and maintain our level of PINs. And we think that puts us in a good position to do the work that we need to do this coming year. That's really the main thrust of what I had, and would love to just answer any questions that you have and go into greater detail. One other little point I might add is, aside from the general fund appropriations, I know that because of the revenue situation this year, I've been told that if we have any one-time expenditures that we would like to ask for, this would probably be a good year to do it. So if there is money available, we do have some capital expenses, one-time expenses that I think will help the auditor's office. We've got about, I would say, $250,000 worth of capital expenses. Those specifically would be going toward things like vehicles for investigators. So our investigators obviously have to have vehicles to go out and do their work, and some of our vehicles are kind of at the end of their life cycle. So some of the capital expenses would be for vehicles. And then some of our IT infrastructure in the office is aging. I mean, just to give you a very basic example, we've got some printers that are near the end of their life. So that capital expense request would go toward those kinds of things. That's not a have to have. That's would be good to have this year, especially given the revenue picture. So that's why we put forward that request this year. That's the long and short of it. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So basically what I hear you saying is you're trying to hire 4 more auditors for your staff to help with the influx of the ARPA funds that we're going to have to be looking at. And your biggest problem will be recruiting those people because of the shortage, because 50 states need a bunch of auditors right now.
Yes, sir. That's a good way of summarizing it. And I think we would have to figure out exactly how many we need in the future, but you've summarized the problem correctly. If you go out and talk to any CPA firm in the state, they will tell you that they have the same problem we have. They have a lot of work, a lot of audit work to do. If they could hire more people today, they would hire more people today, but it's very difficult to find people with the skill sets that they need. And I think I mentioned this in the ARPA hearing. When Hurricane Katrina hit, it was a disaster, but it only affected a few states. And so when you needed to hire somebody to come in and do HVAC work or cleanup work, somebody could come from Texas or Wyoming or wherever and come down here and do that work. The recession caused by COVID is a 50-state phenomenon. And so every single state got stimulus money, and every single state is going to have to figure out how to audit that money. So when we're competing for auditors and CPAs and accounting graduates, we're competing with the entire country at this point because everybody's got the same problem. So it is a challenge, but I wanted you to know and your committee to know, Mr. Chairman, that we're thinking creatively about it, and we're trying to create new pipelines of talent to get people into the auditor's office so that we can do the work that legally we're required to do when all this money comes in.
Mr. Auditor, I have Senator Williams, Senator Blackwell here. Do you guys have any questions? Senator Blackwell, I believe, has a question.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you presenting to us, Chad. Do you happen to have off the top of your head the figure amount that you have covered for the state?
Total recovery? No, sir, I don't, but I can get it to you. I would look back at our 3 exceptions reports for the last few years, and we can get you an exact number. I'll tell you, a big chunk of that is likely going to come from the $55 million settlement that was reached this past year. So a lot of our smaller embezzlement cases, we'll recover $100,000, $200,000 here and there. The $55 million settlement that was reached between Mississippi and a pharmacy benefit manager is the largest civil settlement that was reached as a result of a state auditor's investigation in the state's history. And so I'll give you a number, but I can already tell you that the bulk of it is going to come from that settlement, and then the minority of it will come from our routine investigations. The other thing that I would, I guess, wrinkle in there is, I think it is an important data point to look and see how much we're recovering, because that is an indication of how well we're doing our jobs. I do think another thing to remember is, aside from that number, when we are doing these investigations and we're closing out cases, we're getting convictions for public embezzlement or whatever it may be, we believe that is creating a deterrent out there that slowly but surely will persuade people that if they steal money from the public, that they're going to be held accountable. So we feel like even in a year, if we spend $8 million and we recover $500,000, we still feel like as long as we're doing our jobs and we're promoting that work adequately, that it will send a message to people to watch their back if they're stealing money from you. Okay. So Logan was just showing me a number off of our exceptions reports for the past couple of years, not this one that will be available this year, and that number is north of 8 million. So $8 million recovered, plus the 55 million that I just mentioned.
Any other questions? If not, Chad, thank you very much for your presentation. We understand your needs. We understand your problems, and we're not going to solve one of them.
Yeah. If you got one done, or maybe half of one done, that'd be pretty good. But Mr. Chairman, I appreciate y'all. All of y'all have my cell phone numbers. I think if you ever need anything, please call me. If you have any follow-up questions, give me a call anytime, and happy to walk you through it and give you my best answer.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Much appreciate y'all being here.
Right, thanks so much. I absolutely do.
I'll ask her,
Thank you.
those 12 positions or do a division, she's gonna need those in. And I can ask. you.
Okay, do that. Do what?
Oh, no, quite all right. You understand, you've been very busy. No problem.
I'm good.
So,
Yeah, I saw that text.
I don't know who this is to you. I mean, I haven't put it out on the type. What is it? When that's when we lost them. They wanted 16. You said that. All right, thank you.
Hey, Max. I got it nice and warm.
How are you?
Got it nice and warm for you.
Get this over here. So you're leaving me?
I'll see you in a
She'll be
little
right
bit.
back.
Okay.
I promise I won't keep you.
All right. Wait, you showed up. Thank you for gracing us. I know we're.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. So just y'all two up in here today, sir?
Do it.
Is it just you and
Yes.
Sam?
I see it. Thank you.
All you need, I guess.
That's hey. The seat is gonna be made. That's it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Ms. Secretary, thank you for being here today. And we are looking forward to your presentation of your needs. And I'm sure we probably need to look at expanding your office in some way. Is that correct?
Perhaps, Your Honor. So, thank you all both for being here. I appreciate the work that you do. Clearly, being a colleague, I understand the pressures that come with the job, especially preparation. So, take your time along to be here for a few minutes. A couple of things. One, I really wanted to launch into just a quick overview of some of the successes that we had last year. Clearly, we've had many challenges because of the things that are happening. You can see from our one page here some of the numbers on the front, the increase in the service that we've been able to provide in our office. I just wanted to highlight that just to let you know, number one, the caliber of individuals we have in our office. Proud of the men and women that work at the Secretary of State's office, the job that they do, the care that they show for Mississippians. So we don't take that lightly. We understand that we work for the taxpayer. It's something that you're seeing reflected in the work that we do, the increased number, the increased output. Hopefully you'll continue to see, expect to continue to see good work from the office. Real quickly, we'll walk through this in just quick bullet points. You'll see our revenues there, a 9% increase year over year. A couple of things that we've been showing that we've seen a big uptick in our property issues that we forfeited properties is a large uptick in the number of requests, the applications, a lot of things that we've been working with. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of the increased revenues that you're seeing there. Our request is before you, laying bare there. It's a small decrease from last year, so we're not asking for an increase. You'll see a shift in some of the focus that we have on the next page there. One thing I did want to mention that is going to be some conversations moving forward is the election support. You'll see right there the 3.87. That's a number that mechanically seems to be stuck in DFA. We are going to be talking a little bit about that. As you know now, the election support from ESF is a 50-50 split. 50 goes to our counties, election equipment, elections, goes to the general fund. We're going to ask that we change that. That's another conversation, but the one we need to have right here is this is somebody that somehow has gotten lost in translation, got called in DFA. As we will talk about moving forward, we need to transition our counties to do machines. One of the things that we would propose is that some of this money that's been called would be used to offset some of that expense. So we're always looking for money used for the needs that we have in our state. This is one that's kind of a gift that's just kind of floating out there. We now, hey, this money's not been transferred. Not much. We can use this for some of our machines. So I did want to bring that up. 2 points with that. One, you will see some mechanical language and some of our other legislation dealing with that split. With the new equipment, counties are going to have more expense when they go in with their ballots the ballot situation, updating your software. So we're suggesting we move that 50 split to 70 to our counties, 30 to our office. I'm not asking for more money, but I'll tell you now, we need that with our some of the things we're working on in elections. So you're going to see a little bigger conversation with DSF, but I wanted to point out this money is sitting right there, and we can use that for machines, so we can offset some other expenses. Also, last piece I would say with our DSF, we've got, when we draw down money from HAVA, not specifically DSF, but when we draw money down from HAVA, there are different accounts that we need to transfer money to. There is one that we do not have the authority to transfer some money to. It's supposed to be gaining interest under federal law, but we don't have the authority to transfer that money. So that's going to be a request. It's just a little tweak. But I did want to make y'all aware of that. It's not a whole lot of money, but again.
What are you calling a whole lot of money?
It's actually $623.
That's not a whole lot of money.
Yeah, it's
It's not a whole lot of
small.
money. I want to be honest with you,
Right.
but we need that authority to transfer that money to this fund to abide by federal law. So I did want to point that out. Not a big deal, but I want you to be aware. On the next page, you'll see some of the breakdown there. You'll see some drastic decreases in some of those lines, coupled with some increases in some of those. Salary is one that I'm sure you're aware of. SEC2, the impact that's had on our budget on salaries. So we'll note that increase. Travel, you see there, an increase from 21 to 22 that we've leveled off to 23. Obviously, the decline in 21 was because of COVID. We've seen an increase now in the number of examiners that are going out, as well as other travel that obviously is needed in our office. When we have elections, we send out folks to watch the precincts, so that's why that number is a little bit different. Commodities, you saw a big decrease there from 21. Obviously, we had PPE and other things due to our elections. So we had a lot of money that was flowing through that account, so that accounts for that big decrease there. And then the other one I would point out there is contractual. Let me point out with this one, she's done a phenomenal job of finding areas that we can cut. We've averaged just over $100,000 a cut of real cuts, not just real cuts. So she's done a great job of that this year. You'll see $136,990 permanent savings that we've identified. Now, I will say this, we're getting close to, we can't cut it anymore. But I made a commitment to y'all 3 years ago. I'll do everything I can to cut out. So we're getting close to that. You saw the 8.3% reduction in the contractual expenditures. And that's what we were talking about.
Let me may I interrupt?
Yes, sir.
Contractual, is that usually and probably more attorney's fees than anything?
That's a big number.
Right, so of in 21, that 4.39 million, attorney's fees was making 300,000 of it. So
That's all?
yeah, that's all. A large portion of it is the ITS contractual expenditures that are both for the agency, but also for Simmons, the statewide election management system. And they're actually like pretty equal in, yeah.
Well, it just seems like your office has a lot of legal contracting going on, especially on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Yes, sir.
And I figured that was in that number somewhere.
And that's been one that we actually talked about that today. Where can we cut more? Are we getting to the goal? Well, part of that is the legal expense. We don't know where they can sue. So if we don't have that money to defend the lawsuit, we got to come back every year. So that's a hard one to continue to cut because we can't project that who's going to sue the case.
Mhm.
That's one that's hard for us to do.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're
Go
good,
ahead.
you're good. But, contractual wise, as she mentioned, Sims, that's the big thing that we do with elections in the office, the state election office. Tons of contracting through that. So cybersecurity, computer infrastructure, software, you name it. That's a big piece of the contractual funds. To answer that question. Back to the SEC, and I know this is a conversation that y'all have before, but I'm getting absolutely murdered by these other agencies. DPS, I mean, they have the ability to pay more than that. You've got to figure out the right size. Help with some of our agencies, but not with all of them. So I just encourage you guys to look at that. One of the things that we've heard is transitioning all over STV, letting them do that first of all, right sizing salaries. We talked about Sims, we talked about legal. 660 building. Our rent right now down the street at Towers continues to escalate. We're over 400,000 a year. We have identified some space in the 660 building on North Street. DFA is going to request request more dollars to renovate that building, so we can move back and get out of this monstrosity. This is what it is. We got to have space.
Now I'm looking, is that the one that they're going to renovate? Is that a state-owned building? Okay.
State-owned building, so we'll wipe that off. You saw we did that our first year on the coast. We saved about 40,000 a year in rent expenses. Because we went to state-owned building. That's a big global pride, so that's a big chunk of the other state. So I just wanted to give the DFA more credit on that. We talked about the ES7 fund. We talked about the transfer. I think that's about it right now. And I would just end with this again. We're going to save money every chance we get. But I've got a phenomenal team. I want to help people take their state's office because it's really hard. So, to the extent I would help with that. That's it. What questions?
Senator?
I have a few. The agencies you're competing with, what's the percentage difference in salaries?
So for instance, even one that's a state pride, the Attorney General's office, the Attorney General's salary around 1,000 for Captain 9. That's $18,000 for the Captain. That's a big number.
Big number.
It's an even larger number with the DPS when you go to DEQ. I love DEQ. Much less. Yeah. So it's a big issue. One that I would
Think that, do you know what the DFA request for the renovation is, the dollars, what they are? I'm sure it's pretty good. It just,
They asked for in the last fiscal year, we got a portion, the people that are currently in that building, they have to relocate, so they have kind of
Kind of
phased
stepping
in
it up.
approach. That's right.
The 400 that you're paying in rent, will all that go away? Will there be a piece of that that goes away? I mean, other than the maintenance that a number of
It's a no-brainer. And what she's talking about.
ROI.
Right. Folks that are in there now, they have to find swing space to place them. So they have to renovate the swing space. Now they got to go and renovate the building. So it's just
I got you.
process. It's going to take.
Yeah. Sorry, one last thing. You got this several references to increases on the front, like 46% increase in number of business phone calls. What is that quantity of calls that your office handles with just a couple of them as an example? Big increase.
Yeah, I'll get you that numbers on this.
That's okay if you don't have them.
Last year, I happened to know, like, I think we got about 80,000 phone calls. In there, I'll follow up, email you, Senator, the exact number, but.
No, that's okay. I mean, like 80,000 this year with 120 or close if you want to 46.
Well, it had been maybe like 48,000,
Okay.
50,000 in the prior year in FY20. So FY21, that's what these numbers are.
Are you doing that with the same number of staff?
Yes, sir.
You show the other agencies how to do that efficiently. That's good. That's good. Thank you.
One to that point, I can help. You know, we saw COVID, we saw a lot of shift working, a lot of, hey, you go home, you telework. We got a rave review from the peer committee on our telework policy. What I would say is one of the things that we saw was our folks were so responsible that we saw no one's gonna work. And so we've been able to use that. For instance, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, and we get 2 days. Well, on the day before, one of the things that I talked on is family matters. Relationships matter. We want the family activities. Now that you've shown me that you can telework and drive your numbers up, I'm gonna reward you. Why don't you take an extra day, telework, get your job done? That's another day home with your family. I think when we do things like that, it encourages our folks. So.
Senator, they got 88,000 is the number. My calls y'all had, 88,000.
There you go. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. A lot of call. Yeah. Do a good job. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Joe?
Oh, you quit. Okay. One question. I believe our election spending report and contribution report is due soon. Have y'all improved that dadgum software yet?
We are working on that.
That's not a good answer.
It's not a good. Matter of fact, I've had a couple of members say that they try to do it online. It's like we've got a vendor that's actually coming up within the next year. Yeah, we are.
The procurement is about to be underway for a new contract. That's
Okay. Well, just be advised, I'm gonna hand it in the old fashioned way this year.
I won't argue with that.
Okay. Good deal. Well, thank you for your report. One last question. talking about the election machines in the county level. There's a lot of money to be spent there. I mean, I'm from Lamar County, and you would think we would be the most up to date, but my circuit clerk's always contacting me. I need new machines, and that surprises me. Can you give me any information about that very quickly?
I can, in your county is one for us. It's an expense, it is. But I will say this, we've had some smaller counties surprisingly transition in the last year. I think we came in, number one goal we talked about somehow, like we did in 06, I believe it was, about 06, Secretary Clark basically was a purchase, a bulk purchasing machine. Obviously, you save money.
Right.
When I came in, we already had some counties go to paper ballots. Out scanner. It's paper that you can rely on to go back and get this ballot. So it's good stuff. Do that round, but also the expense. So we're going to try to do a bulk purchase of all the counties about the clerks. Listen, if we come up with a consensus of a machine that you like, we'll buy it. Send it down to you. Or we can do it. We looked at the bond bill, didn't work. We looked at some cover dollars. The money that is there now, we can't use that. What we hope is, for instance, the ESF dollars that we found, some other things we can cobble on up money together. These counties will cross the line. But remember, once they do that new machine, it will be a new expense for them to program those ballots and other expenses. So that's why we get the CSF dollars. It's really important to cancel that back. So he has, we've talked to him. Again, the expense is a big one. Some counties have bitten that bullet, some have waited and less moved.
I think my circuit clerk keeps thinking the state's going to step in and handle it. So
Most of
he's
them
waiting.
have, but some of them said, well, we're not ready.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate your presentation, and certainly we'll keep all this under consideration.
it's, you gotta find clerk.
We would like to put the, Lisa done that on the phone.
Okay. See you.
We were thinking of
See you, uncle.
All right. Thank you.
See you, bud.
Okay. Wireless Commission.
Thank you, Max. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Let me go get some.
Oh, yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon again. Anywhere on that end of the table, right there, be fine.
Thank you very much.
You did.
How are you doing? Good to see you. Thank you, man.
I think we're pretty close to on time, so welcome. We're talking about wireless communication, and that's always a big topic.
Seems like it always is. Yes, sir.
So please begin your presentation.
Okay, my name is Vicki Holford. I'm the Executive Director of the Wireless Communication Commission. I have with me Ron Carroll, Chief of my Administrative Officer. I'd like to go over our deficit and budget request, but if you have time, I'd like to kind of go over what we do.
All right, we've got about 12, 14 minutes.
I'll make this really quick. So we provide one service. We provide emergency communications for first responders in the state. We started building out this system, the Miss Win system after Katrina. started building about 2008. We are currently now have over 51,000 first responders that rely on this system for their emergency communication. This is their lifeline. This is their radio that they utilize in day-to-day or operations or emergency situations. We have over 600 public safety entities on the system. That's local, state, federal, tribal, and we also have public safety NGOs such as electric cooperatives, ambulance service providers, hospitals, etc. To date, about $495 million has been invested in the system. That's state money, local money, about $210 with federal money. The local money has been used to either put additional sites in counties to increase their coverage, their in-building coverage, or to buy radios. One thing I do want to point out is this system was built to provide 97% mobile area coverage. That's a mobile radio in a car, and I kind of call it outdoor coverage. When a county typically joins the system, if they have the funding, like Rankin County, Lee County, Warren County, Hancock County, they add additional sites to our system with their money to increase their in-building and portable coverage. So we have those partnerships all across the state, and that's where we've got to the 495 and helped continue to enhance the system. We have about 60% of our counties that are solely reliant on the system, and I'd say about 95% of our state agencies. And users go from school buses. Now, a lot of counties and school buses have radios. They're utilizing the system. School resource office, police departments, fire departments, sheriff's offices, your game wardens, forestry commission, DMR conservation officers, of course, highway patrol, DPS, state and local emergency management, et cetera, and colleges and universities. We average around 8.7 million push to talks a month on the system. That's a lot of push to talks.
But now usually somebody will say something, they'll go click, click, just to say, okay. And so that counts.
That does count. That does count. But that's still, I mean, it does. But that's still a lot of push to talks. And we could go back and, I mean, this is just over the past year, right? So we get kind of excited when the numbers continue to grow. But I would say at 51,000 first responders, we still have first responders that can be added to the system, but we're getting close to, we always thought there'd be like somewhere between 40 and 60,000 first responders in the state utilizing the system. Okay. Jumping over, do you have any questions about the system and kind of what the wireless commission does? We're a 16-member commission, but named by statute as to who oversees the system and emergency communications. It's made up of state and local entities, public safety entities, and we meet monthly and govern the network and other items in emergency communication, such as public safety broadband. We oversee that. Right now, the entity that provides that in the state is FirstNet. Other areas of emergency communication, such as alerts and warnings and things like that, are typically divvied out by statute to other agencies. If I missed anything for now, I think we're good. So moving over to our request, we do have a deficit request for FY 2022, and we're asking for $606,242. Say that right, $606,242 as a deficit, and that is for system maintenance for the network. So we pay about 3.2. Actually, it's a little more for FY 22, but we've got that price down in the future, down to just 3.2 million for system maintenance. That covers all the RF antennas, the microwave. That includes all the site equipment at every site, which all of our sites are backed up with. We have backup power systems at every one of our sites, with generators, HVAC systems, UPS systems, grounds maintenance, which doesn't sound like it'd be a big thing, but it is a large item at these sites. So we need that money for system maintenance and ensure that we keep the system up and operational 24/7, 365 days a year. Without that funding, it could compromise communications for over 51,000 users and 600 public safety entities. Any questions about the deficit request?
All right. So you've got a deficit request on contractual service, $606,242.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
looking at this second page. Is the salaries not is that not a deficit request also?
No, that is part of the FY 23 budget.
Okay, okay.
So the very top part is just the deficit request.
Okay.
And I know the numbers are the same.
They are the
but-
same, yeah.
But
That's what threw me.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So it's, move on down to the FY 23 budget request, we're asking, we're accepting Elbow's recommendation for travel, commodities, capital equipment, subsidies, loans, and grants. We have just 3 items we're asking for a change. One is in salaries and personnel. We're asking for the restoration of 3 positions and $215,353 in funding for salaries. And then we're asking for the restoration of $606,242 for miscellaneous maintenance and contractual services. I do want to point out that over 90% of our budget is contractual services. Power leases, land leases, utility bills, maintenance, etc. Less than 10% goes to admin, salaries, to anything to do with operating the wireless commission. We basically use all the money that we have to buy equipment to help our first responders. And I did want to point out that since the inception of the contract in 2008, we have been able to keep maintenance costs with our Motorola contract level. And so for over 10 years, we've kept those costs level. And we've also negotiated, secured 3 software and hardware upgrades to the system at no additional cost to the state. That's about $15 to $20 million cost savings. We've done that. We've had federal grants where we've had projects and we've been able to negotiate extended maintenance agreements with Motorola and those software hardware upgrades. The software hardware upgrades, it's just like any IT system. You've got to upgrade it to keep it at the latest, greatest technology that's out there. Our last upgrade was in May of this past year, 2021. And we typically try to upgrade about every 4 years. But so we don't talk about the cost savings a lot. And I know I put it in bold, so I just, so we've done our best to keep our maintenance costs level, keep our costs level, and to get as much as we can for the state at no additional cost. And the current contract that we did negotiate with Motorola, it goes through June 30th, 2023. So we're in one of the fiscal years. We have one more fiscal year where the cost will be kept level. But we're already negotiating with them for future costs, trying to keep those levels as well.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Williams?
Just a few questions real quick. The deficit piece, was that not anticipated? I mean, obviously we didn't budget for it, but with at the beginning of the fiscal year, you anticipate that over.
We did not get the funding that we.
Okay, so it's not that it was necessarily a surprise, you expected a deficit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Three positions,
Over
what
180.
are they?
Over 180.
These are going to be
Okay.
system technicians.
Technicians.
I currently. we have
The 3 were, the 3
technicians that
were.
are Covering the needs of over 51,000. So they stay pretty busy.
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, our contract with Motorola provides us with a system manager and 3 FSOs, 3 other technicians throughout the state. So it's not just our technicians that are handling everything. Plus we have all the vendor shops. There's 3 Motorola vendor shops in the state. So they have technicians that really are called out in the middle of the night to go repair, fix whatever is wrong. Every part of this system is alarmed. So if someone opens the door, we get an alarm and someone's got to go find out why the door's open. So, but our technicians have to handle the items that don't fall under the maintenance contract and the system users.
That emergency response is under the contract. Well, we can't take care of that, but,
They take care of it as well as our techs, yeah.
and we talked about the $20 million, or that's the round number we're using to upgrade the system because we're in the life with it. If that money gets procured and you do that, you look up at the contractual services of $10 million, will that number need to be that high?
So are we talking about the potential ARPA request?
Well,
We
I
were
mean-
able to get funding.
But sitting on the board, I've understood that we've got a $20 million ask that we're going to need just because we've got a 14-year-old system and we just need to upgrade it to ensure reliability. ARPA is one of the buckets we hope to get it from.
Gotcha.
But if we take that 20 million, upgrade the system, will we see contractual services be able to go down?
No, what we would hope, no, that does not impact contractual services. If we are able to get funding, what we want to do is upgrade our microwave system, because it was built out, started being built out in 2008. And each one of our tower sites is connected by microwave. We chose to do that because that's how you typically build a public safety communication system. We're not relying on public switch telephone network. But it needs to be upgraded, but that would be to upgrade those systems so that they're at end of life and we don't have to use, I guess, state funds in the future to upgrade those areas, but it will not impact contractual services. But what we would try to do is negotiate an extended maintenance agreement at the current cost, those cost level, and that would be a positive impact on the state instead of us having an increase.
Right.
Because contractually they can increase. There is a clause that allows them to increase, but we've managed to keep it level. So if we were able to get funding and we chose to go that route with Motorola, it would be to upgrade those components of the network that are at end of life, and then we would try to get that maintenance agreement as well.
Okay.
So that would be a win for the state.
What was our what did we pay Motorola last fiscal year?
For maintenance?
They're the big vendor in here. I think it looks like. Just curious what that number was.
So if you look up here at the top, it shows you for FY20, we actually paid them 3.26, a little over 3.266. At the top of the deficit request, it shows you in FY21 was 3.267.
So all that money was Motorola.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, some of it might include some of our maintenance, so I would not.
Okay.
On that. I apologize. What I will tell you though is when we negotiated this new 2-year agreement, it actually went down. It was a little bit over 3.2, and we got it down to just the regular 3.2 million. They just missed. They missed that they were actually getting paid more. We said 3.2, and that's what we got. But that would be our current, I guess, mission is to keep it at that 3.2 million. And we've going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I know their costs are going up. I understand that. They tried to say, well, let me send you invoices, but we need to keep our costs level.
Okay, sir, do you have any other questions?
We can get that information for
Okay.
you.
That'd be good to know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have one question in regards your pens. You have 10, we had 10 there. You had 7 employees. 3 of those pens that were vacant were over 180 days. That's the only information I have. What is the actual time that they've been vacant?
Over 180 days, I would think.
Well, but they're definitely over 180.
I don't know the actual numbers. We were down to 4 employees during COVID.
Okay.
One was actually there were 3 of us working. One was sick. I think he got COVID earlier, but he was out for about a year. So we got up to 7. We really are trying to hire system tech. That's where I'm having trouble hiring our system technicians.
Okay.
But they've been open more than 180 days. I know I have one that's been open over a year, probably over several years.
Okay.
But I've asked to retain those please and help us get through another year and try to find system technicians.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here, and we'll sure take everything under advisement.
Okay, thank you.
What was that? Show me that number that she was showing me. Is that days?
Yes, sir.
It's like 4 years.
Okay.
These are like 3. And then that's like 6.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's-
sir.
Okay. Got it.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Carl. So I get you back?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to leave you this time, but I'm gonna come back. You know I will.
I know you will.
There we go.
Just sit anywhere there will be fine.
Long day.
Oh, got a longer one still coming.
I know.
Okay. Thank you for coming. We're going to talk about Innovate Mississippi. And so I'll let you begin your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I actually am going to kind of tell a story that's told in these middle pages if you want to follow, but there's also just good information in the surrounding document about sort of the impact. But the easy way to think about Innovate Mississippi is we're like the Mississippi Shark Tank. And we work specifically on technology and innovation startups. And we work really closely with MDA, but we don't have any incentives or anything like that. We work instead on not attracting companies here, but trying to just connect dots. So we have set up investors around the state, which are putting private dollars to work. We organize those investors into different angel funds, the North Mississippi Angel Fund, Central Mississippi Angel Fund. We're about to do the South Mississippi from Hattiesburg to the coast. And they've got about halfway there in terms of their group. And then we get companies ready to be investor ready deals. So it's really is a connect the dot type of organization. We think that's really important. By the way, it's interesting. We're a private nonprofit public partnership with NDA. But the reason why this model works is because a lot of these startups and technology investors don't trust government. So practically every state and every city does it in a similar way. There's even an Innovate Arkansas, and they formed an Innovate Alabama recently as well. And a lot of what we're doing is, again, connecting dots. And it's a cheaper way to do economic development. And you wouldn't put all your money into this, but imagine, it doesn't really, it's a lot cheaper without state incentives to connect a Hattiesburg investor to a Tupelo company, and they invest, and that company can grow like that. So that's really our model. We've been working in this space for a while, have connections, about 300 investors around the state, have been helping them form these funds, and we're creating jobs in these startups. Now, again, the startups are creating the jobs, but we're helping them do that investment, about $1,800 per job. It's been, we've been, success story sheet that's on there talks about some of the companies or put some of their logos, and we have a new wave of new companies all the time. I highlighted one of them in here just with some pictures because this little company, Glow in Starkville, electrical engineer from Mississippi State, had a job with Tesla. He'd interned with Tesla, turned it down to do a startup in Starkville. And his startup with these glow cubes, you put them in liquid, they glow. And bars and restaurants all over the country are using them, just kind of a novelty item. Well, the pandemic came along and bars and restaurants are all closing. They morphed that into a Sesame Street bath toy that is now more than triple their sales before the pandemic. So now it's a water activated bath toy. They even had some therapeutic things they found with special needs kids that can engage them in a bath in different ways. Really awesome company, 25 employees in Starkville. And it's just a perfect example of kind of, reversing the brain drain in terms of what we do. I did point out, it's on the back of this flyer too. If you look at what other states do, our budget had traditionally been over $1 million, but several years ago we had dropped below that and are currently at $550,000. It's a very strange setup in the budget system because we request general funds, but when we actually receive them, they're passed through MDA and they show up as special funds. So when I talk to folks not in the loop on that, a lot of times they say, well, it looks like you got nothing last year, nothing this year, but we request general funds and then they flow as special funds, but we're requesting $1 million. And I could love to talk more about the impact we can do with that funding.
Okay. Senator Williams.
Good.
You good? Okay.
They had 10, last year they had 9. They've asked 11.
No, we do all recommendation, but once y'all. Yes. Quick question, take Will, for instance, without y'all, what would that?
Well, that's a great question. So Glow already had through
But
Mississippi State,
They
there's a
were one
Bulldog
that had
Angel Network.
employees.
So they found some of their funding through the Bulldog Angel Network. But in their first round, we also introduced them to investors, about half. And then
Well, yeah,
same thing
'cause they
in their
had that.
subsequent round. They're actually raising a new round now of about 2 million. And we've also been introducing them to investors in this round. They've raised about 1.4 of that. If you look at the split, it's probably 2/3 from their MSU connections and 1/3 from our connections in that current mix. But their current gap, 600K, we're trying to fill with connections we made, the North Mississippi Angel Fund in particular.
Success is due to collaborative effort. not-
Absolutely. And we would liken it to, we're like second and third grade teachers. You can never really take credit if the kid turns out to be a good kid, but they have to go through second and third grade. They have to become investor ready, take these, this first outside capital like that. But Glow's a good example. They've been offering money in Birmingham, lots of other places. And if you don't have someone in Mississippi at that early stage getting them investment, they just move. And there's no announcement. That little 3-person company just grows up in Birmingham or Nashville or New Orleans or wherever else they get that money. So it's a pretty invisible space when you lose them. That's why we focus on that very first outside capital, because that's where you move companies if you don't get Mississippi investment.
Thank you.
Only question I have would be about your pins. You currently are at 9 and you're asking for an increase to 11. What will those other 2 pins do?
So the pins are a little misleading because we've started a nonprofit called the Mississippi Coding Academies that we still administer. And so those pins are independent from our entrepreneurial efforts. So the entrepreneurial efforts specifically, we would have someone managing our partner relationships and we would run an accelerator. So I didn't talk about that, but we have partners all over the state that we work with, and almost all the new money would be going to the partners in their work directly with this. We're trying to create a small Innovate Mississippi with each of our partners. So that's a company in Clarksdale, Mississippi State, the Oxford Lafayette Economic Development Foundation, a group called the Bean Path in Jackson, the Mississippi Polymer Institute in Hattiesburg, and a co-working space called the Meeting Place in Biloxi. So our extra pins would be one around capital and connecting those folks to the capital resources, another around just managing that relationship with those companies, because they're the incubator, they're the first level. So Mississippi State folks, they hear the craziest ideas, they only bring the semi-crazy ones to us, and then we take them on. And so those local partners will hear even the craziest of ideas. And some of these are just, they're just entrepreneurs, and they're sometimes crazy ideas. And then we take them from there. So that's building that local partnership network.
All right. Senator Williams, you get extra questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Short and sweet. Thank you very much. We appreciate what you do. We appreciate the success you've been having, and maybe Glow will grow some more.
We hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all for being here. Appreciate what y'all do.
I love it when the trains run on time.
Wrap for you, huh?
Yeah.
I think that's a wrap for you.
That's a wrap till Thursday at 1:30. And all right, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
I'm a big fan of the last one just because I see the direct result of what they do.
Yeah. And it's not that expensive, actually.
Clothes doing good. And they're really successful. You get a monster one day, it's something like
Oh my goodness, there's so much paper wasted. I can't read any of this, really. What have I done with my notebook? I left it. You left.
Oh, I'm coming right back.
Okay.
Stand out in the cold for a little while.
Oh, I may not do that. I may watch it on live stream.
It'll be the same on TV as it will be. I will hate to have been in